if you shoot somebody in your home, you're probably not going to be the one cleaning that up. You're probably going to want to have a team come out, and there are teams or hazmat teams that come out and that deal with that. And that's typically starting around $300 to $3,500.
I'm Ryan Gresham, and this is Gun Talk Nation. This Gun Talk Nation is brought to you by SecureIt, Silencer Central, Wheeler, Range Ready, Remington, EOTECH, Smith & Wesson, BuildBox, RCBS, and Franklin Armory. All right, welcome into Gun Talk Nation. Talking to Mike Darter, CCW Safe. Mike, you're kind of an interesting guy for being a founder for this, because this started off with you getting into a shooting, right?
Yeah. Well,
as a police officer.
Yeah, the backstory was that.
So
yeah.
So tell me about that.
So I was I spent 10 years with Oklahoma City Police Department, and then I spent 10 years with ATF contracting out of Dallas, and so most of my career I worked gangs, and for a short time when I was in Oklahoma City, I was on a plainclothes team, and we were each division had this team that was a street level felony team. My division is a lot of narcotics. So we we're a self-sufficient team. So we did our own, investigations, interviews, raids, everything. Really? In that time, I ran about 400 entries. I was on an entry team, ran about 400 entries in the 2 years that I was there. And, you run that many entries, your time comes up. And I was, generally, most of the time, I was number 2 man in the door. And, that was probably at the height of my training. We trained a lot, on the mats, but then we also trained off the mats. We trained at the range. We trained in, running different scenarios. And so we had a case where it was a ongoing investigation. We had information on a house. Guys just got out of prison. He was a prison gang member, white supremacist gang member. And we had information on him selling drugs. And
so you're not allowed to do that if you're a felon?
If you're a felon, yeah.
Okay.
They kind of frown upon that.
Clarity there, just make sure, yeah, okay.
So he got out, went right back into, the business.
What he knew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we had a CI that we ran at the house, and, got a buy, came out, and the CI said he had a gun. He was bragging about shooting 2 black guys who tried to, pull a home invasion on him, made this story up, and said he did have a gun. Said it was a big gun.
Okay.
We after talking, debriefing, sounded like it's probably .357 or something like that.
Okay.
Revolver. And so we, got a warrant on the house, and we checked hospitals, we checked CAD, we checked, dispatch, everything. We couldn't verify or confirm that there was anything that happened, like he said there was a shooting at the house or anything. Yeah. So, the CI was a female, so we kind of thought, well, he's probably just, trying to,
yes. Okay.
brag a little bit, made up some stuff. But at the same time, it was, he had this story in his head, and it was like, okay, if we hit that door, most likely we're going to be facing a shooting. So, anyways, we ended up running the warrant, and they kicked it to, we had a full-time, or we had a TAC team at that time. It wasn't a full-time TAC team, but we had a tactical unit, and we kicked it to them, and we did a lot of training with them at the time, and the administration said, no, they're not going to run it. It's too high risk. So they kicked it back to us, and we're like,
Too high risk.
What does that
Great.
mean? Yeah, what does that mean? I mean, somebody's got to go do this. And something happened. I can't remember what. Something happened, and I went to my lieutenant and said, "Hey, we're going to run this warrant." And he said, "Yeah, we ought to put it on the board." And it kind of surprised me because I was like, "Really? You're going to let us run this warrant?" So we get it on the board, which means we go do surveillance on the house, and we try to get a layout from what we see of the pipes and the walls and the doors and everything. And we build a layup on the board. We get the entry team, go over it. We have uniformed officers. And as we're rolling to the house, we turn the corner, and I remember sliding the door open, and we were, coming up to the house, and the next door, there was a kid playing in the front yard.
Oh, wow.
Probably from what I remember, probably a elementary school aged kid playing in the front yard. And this dad was on the porch, and he ran out, scooped this kid up, ran him in the house. Wow. And at that time, I mean, it was like this foreshadowing. I was like, we're gonna get in a shooting. I knew it was like, and I think we all probably knew that. And so we go up to the house and, knock, announce. It was an immediate entry because it was a high risk warrant. So
sort of a knock, knock, bang kind of thing? Is that how it works?
You had to knock, announce, and you give a second for them to see if there's any response, and then they slam the door. Mm-hmm. And, on the entry, you slam the door, and then you give just a brief pause after the slam, because if there's any shots fired, we brief pause and then enter. We ran dynamic entries at that time, and my partner and I were the only two. He was number one, I was number two, and we made it just inside the house. And I remember, entering, and I turned. My partner went right, I went left, and there was a couch, and suspect was laying on the couch, and he was rolling up with a
raising up the gun.
Raising up, looked like a cannon at my, because
it's a big gun.
I could have reached out and touched his feet. He was laying that close. I was right at the door, and as he was rolling out, I saw a big muzzle flash. And
did you hear it?
I heard a pop.
Yeah.
And we talked about physiological effects earlier.
Auditory exclusion.
I had tunnel vision, everything. In fact, I had everything went to that gun, and my first round as he was rolling up was in the back of his hand.
No kidding.
Hit his hand. He kind of pulled back, dropped the gun on his stomach, and he was trying to grab the gun. And I heard one shot. Everything tunneled in, and I remember I never saw my sights, but I remember I saw the entry wounds. So as he rolled up, I saw the first round hit the back of his hand. Every time, slowed down, which is another thing that's common, especially if you have a lot of training. And I just remember walking him up his arm and up his body.
Yeah.
And so I got to a point, I fired 3 shots, stopped. He was still moving 3 more shots, or I saw 4 shots, stopped, 3 more shots, and at that point I knew it was done. But I thought when I saw the muzzle flash, I thought he got a round off, and I thought he probably hit my partner. But I didn't know because I had tunnel vision in on this.
Yeah. And did your partner shoot?
He did shoot. So the muzzle flash was his round.
No kidding.
So he had a SIG. I had a Glock 21, 45 caliber. He had a SIG. And as he was entering, he went right, I was going left, and he saw the threat and kind of fired on the run, and his stovepiped.
Really?
Yeah, so I engaged, and he was tapping, racking, clearing his gun. I remember looking over briefly at him, and saw him, and I was like tapping my arm to, okay, at this point, we're going from a dynamic entry, we're locking everything down, going to limited. And so, yeah, that was the incident, and it was actually more than that. So when I saw him, I saw a dark hallway behind him, and I was tapping my arm to try to get him to me, and I think I said, "Watch your back." And as you know, I just looked at him for a second and came back to the guy I engaged, and then I heard 5 more shots, pop, 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 and I turned, and he was running at me, and so we
Another
backed
guy?
out. No,
Oh, your
my
partner. Okay, gotcha.
And everybody had kind of, because I just made it into the doorway when he was rolling up, everybody split on the front of the house, the rest of the team.
Yeah.
So we backed out. I remember going the corner, I reloaded. I was telling everybody, get on the corners, lock it down. At that point, I thought, I was like, man, we got a compound here. This is going to be like Waco, because Waco was around that time and it was familiar with me. And another man, so the dad came out and collapsed on the front porch, and I was like, who is that? And my partner said, that's a guy you saw behind me. And I was like, I didn't see anybody. I saw a dark hallway behind you. But right when I said that, he came out. My partner was probably 5'8", 160 pounds.
Okay, not a big guy.
He's why he was 1 and I was number 2, because I could go over him. And so right when I said that, Daddy came out and grabbed him around the neck and grabbed his gun and tried to pull him back in the hallway.
Oh, wow.
And he just turned and fired 1 shot. But that 1 shot, I guess my ears were coming back, and I heard this 5 shots.
So it wasn't
there was
5?
5 shots. He fired 1 shot.
No kidding.
And yeah.
That's crazy. I mean, so you've been there, you've had that real life shooting and know what it feels like, sounds like, all those things. And we're going to talk about the aftermath of yours and what that led to with CCW Safe. But let's take a quick break. After the break, I want to talk about the costs associated with getting into a self-defense shooting, because people, I don't think they appreciate what it costs.
Yeah.
Upgrade your workbench with Wheeler tools. Wheeler tools are specifically designed for the job. Fat wrenches, AR tools, gunsmithing tools, and scope mounting kits make the job easier, and it's done right. Check out complete armorer's kits, purpose-built screwdriver sets, or even scope rings. WheelerTools.com. That's WheelerTools.com. Hodgdon, they're the gunpowder people, and one of the ones that people really like is Hodgdon CFE BLK, CFE Black, optimized for 300 AAC blackout subsonic loads, but it's also ideal for the 17 Hornet, 7.62x39, 221 Fireball. So you have some options on things that you can load with this powder. One of the cool things about this, the CFE contains the copper fouling eraser ingredient, originally used in military propellant, which greatly deters copper fouling and contributes to longer periods of top accuracy with less barrel cleaning time. We like this. Go check them out over at Hodgdon.com. SecureItGunStorage.com. We talk about SecureIt because they make just really cool products, and we have a bunch of them here. We have the lockers, we have some of their agile safes, and when people come into Gun Talk headquarters, we often get that question of like, ooh, what's these? They're all stacked up, and it's like a cool wall of storage for your guns and your gear, but they do a good job of providing a lot of different options for storing your goods, gun walls, accessories, and you can kind of customize the configuration inside to really maximize the space for what you want it to work for. So you can learn more over at SecureItGunStorage.com. Enter to win the Ultimate Builder Giveaway presented by BuildBox. Here's your chance to win from over 100 incredible prizes from top brands like Caldwell, Real Avid, Wheeler Tools, Brownells, Aero Precision, Timney Triggers, Ballistic Advantage, EOTECH, and Tipton, and even more. You can also win guns built on the show. Don't miss out. Visit BuildBoxTV.com to enter and gear up for your next build. Franklin Armory binary triggers just got an upgrade, the new AR Elite trigger. Of course, the binary firing system is a 3-position trigger. You can safe, you can fire it semi-auto, but in the 3rd position, it fires 1 round on pull and 1 round on release. Now, the new AR Elite trigger comes with premium features, including interchangeable trigger bows. So you can choose between a curved trigger or a straight flat face trigger. Also easy to install, straight, smooth trigger pull, 4.5 pounds plus or minus a half pound. Positive reset. So go check it out, franklinarmory.com. Mike, CCW Safe, you guys deal with this all the time, but I thought let's talk really about what does it actually cost and what do you actually have to pay for. So, yeah. I mean, run us through this. I mean, there's different varieties,
right,
from basic issues to all the way up to like murder one. So,
right.
What do you think?
Well, I guess to just start with kind of the low end.
Yeah.
Let's just, one of the things we deal with a lot is our brandishing cases.
Yeah.
Where somebody's pulled a firearm, the suspect leaves, but they don't call police. The other guy calls police, and now
police show up
suspect.
And say, you were just waving guns around. What's that going to cost?
$5,000 minimum.
Okay.
$5,000 maybe to $15,000.
Really, $15,000, even if you did everything right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And depending on, there's a lot to go in it. What jurisdiction,
sure.
You're in, what's the political climate of that jurisdiction. So there's a lot that goes into it, but for us, what we've seen is a minimum of $5,000 up to about $15,000.
Okay, now let's talk about the fight that everybody has in their head. Bad guy breaks into your house, you shoot him, but then maybe you live, like you said, in a jurisdiction where the DA wants to make a name of himself, charges you with murder one. Yeah. What are all the things that are going to come up that they're going to have to pay for? There's
going to be a lot, and it comes in stages over probably a 2-year period is what you're looking at if it's going to go to trial. First off, you mentioned in the home. If you shoot somebody in your home, you're probably not going to be the one cleaning that up. You're probably going to want to have a team come out, and there are teams or hazmat teams that come out and that deal with that. That's typically starting around $3,000 to $3,500 to have somebody come up and clean. They may have to cut the carpet. They may have to take, out flooring, whatever.
And probably just leave it like that, right? Yeah. Until you actually have somebody come and fix it.
Yeah, so it's going, and like I said, it's going to be over time. But minimum cost of just having the cleanup done is going to be probably $3,500 to $5,000. So
as much as $5,000.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what?
And some of these are ranges. Some are kind of more hard set. First, typically is the first thing that you're going to have to pay for is an attorney. And if somebody has been shot, especially if somebody is deceased, that attorney, what we're seeing, the retainer fee is minimum of $100,000. And that's going to be, they're going to bill against that. You don't know how long that's going to last. It may last for 6 months. It may last for 3 months. It may last for a year.
Could be more than that?
Yes, most likely that's going to be the first phase, which is the pre-trial phase. So from the arrest to the trial, they're going to take a retainer fee of $100,000.
Okay.
So that could last the entire time. Most likely it won't. You're also going to have bail that you're going to have to meet. If if there was a shooting, somebody's deceased especially, you're probably looking at $1 million bond or $500,000 minimum, and that's going to be generally 10%, and they're set by bond fee, so it's going to be $50,000 to $100,000
to put up to get out of jail, basically.
Yes, and your attorney is probably going to have to fight for that. So you're going to have your attorney hired, and then your attorney is going to fight to get a bond hearing, and then if you get the bond hearing, then you're going to have to pay that to get out. So you've just hired an attorney and are able to get out of jail, and you're looking at $150,000 to $200,000 right off.
And people say, but I get that back, right? But you said not necessarily?
You're going to get some of it back, but it's also going to be over a 2-year time. So you're not going to get that back anytime soon.
Okay.
Because you're going to have to go through the entire process. And if there's a trial, which could be 1.5 to 2 years later, and that's common, you're not going to get anything back and you're not going to get it all back. You're going to get some of it back, but it's going to be probably a couple years later.
What are other elements that people don't think of that are costs during this period?
So during the pretrial is when the attorney is going to build your case. They're going to need investigators. I know we paid upwards of $45,000 for an investigator to do, depending on how much work they have to do, where they're located as far as where the scene was.
Sure.
So you're going to have an investigators. You're going to have trial, or you're going to have experts.
Like expert witnesses.
Expert witnesses.
Okay.
You may be a forensic pathologist. It may be a firearms and tool marks examiner. You don't know really what you're going to need to get into until they get into it, and the attorney is probably going to decide that. And a lot of times you may need more than one. In cases that we've had 2 experts. I think one was around $60,000 for one expert. The other one was, I think, about half that. We knew we probably weren't going to use that one, but we got it done anyways.
So 60,000 and 30,000.
Yeah, and they may not even take the stand.
Wow.
And it may be because the trial is going better in your favor, or it may be that the defense is really looking at one area and they want that expert to attack that. Or it may be, you pay all that money and then you get to a point and they offer a plea deal or something to plea it down. So a lot of this, you may not even end up needing it, but you have to get it done.
Okay.
Another area is jury consultants, which could be probably anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000. And that's going to be somebody who comes in and works with your attorney and sits there during voir dire, and everybody they pull in, they get their backgrounds and their social media, and they get who these people are.
Wow.
So they know who they are on the fly. And to get somebody who really knows what they're doing in that is going to cost some money.
Okay.
So even jury experts are going to be an expense.
Anything else with the trial?
Well, and then you have, so that $100,000 covered the pretrial phase. Now you have, if it goes to trial, and it's not set in stone, but a lot of times the attorney will say, okay, I'll take the retainer fee on this pretrial for this. If it goes to trial, and it's usually agreed, I'll do pretrial for $100,000, and then if it goes to trial, it'll be another $100,000 for the trial.
Wow, another $100,000.
And that can be worked out, that's whatever the attorney sets is what they're going to set. But generally, they'll do a pretrial phase and then a trial phase. The trial phase can go, once they start setting trial dates, once they start getting the expert witnesses, all that's going to go toward the trial phase. So it's a lot more than what people think. And like I said, even if it's just a brandishing case that is dropped, within a week or two, that's going to be a minimum of probably $5,000 to $15,000.
I know that you guys have helped your members with other things that people don't expect. There's job-related things, there's counseling things. What's involved in that? I mean, I guess that's something then, a cost that people should figure of things they might need to pay for.
Yeah, we had one case where, our member was charged. He retreated twice in a stand your ground state, was charged with murder one, immediately was fired from his job. They were going to give him 3 weeks pay. Luckily, we had our critical response team member went out, met with his employer, said, look, you can't do this. This guy's not been charged, or this guy's not been found guilty. He's been charged with the crime. There's a process that we go through. You're innocent until proven guilty. So we were able to get that member severance package for a year's severance package for over $100,000 versus 3 weeks of what he would have gotten.
Yeah.
There's things like, the biggest thing is we have to keep our member healthy. We have to keep them mentally, emotionally healthy, which is huge when you're looking at a trial for murder one. We've done workout plans and workout schedules. We've done meal plans and diet plans to try to keep them as healthy as we can. And then there's a lot of stuff that money can't buy. If you're involved in a shooting and you kill someone and go through this process, what we've seen and what you can just imagine, are you married? Are you going to stay married? Is your marriage going to withstand that? A lot of times it doesn't. We see that. We see problems with, kids. It's just a lot of people think, oh, well, it's not going to affect me that much. It might not affect you that much, but you also have a wife and kids,
Sure.
and it can affect them, especially if you're in the headlines, daily for time. So there's a lot of things that that you can't put a price on that are very valuable things that you can end up losing.
Well, and probably most of us don't have a spare $300,000 or $400,000 laying around just for fun. Especially you put all that out, and then the best case scenario is you win, and that money is gone.
Yeah, it's
right?
gone.
Yeah,
it's gone. You might get, like you said, a little bit of you might get a portion of the bond back, but that's going to be after the trial. And if the trial's 2 years later, that usually is going to go to other things like experts. And that's one thing, you don't want to chintz on, is if you're going to trial and if you're faced with possibly, spending the rest of your life in prison, you want to be able to get the best experts you can. And a lot of times, like I said, it's going to be more than one.
Yeah, all chips in on the table. You know EOTECH for high quality optics, but here's a new one, the EOTECH HWS EXP S3 DCR. I know that's a lot of letters, but what does DCR mean? Danger Close Reticle. Provides fast and accurate shots at typical distances, but also an effective close combat aiming point. It's kind of two reticles in one, which is great for an optic like this. You can learn more at eotechinc.com. The new Smith & Wesson Bodyguard 2.0 bridges the gap between a gun that's easy to carry and one that's easy to shoot. Small and lightweight at only 9.8 ounces, but plenty of .380 auto with 10 and 12 round magazines. See the new Bodyguard at smith-wesson.com. Range Ready is where we run our classes, rangereadystudios.com. So go over there to check out the classes and events that we have going on. These things go fast. Another little known thing about Range Ready is we will provide you a pistol if you need one for running a class, or even an AR. But there's no charge for that. We don't rent you a gun and there's an upcharge. It's just available for your use. So it's a pretty cool deal. Go check it out, rangereadystudios.com. RCBS was founded in 1943 by Fred Huntington in Oroville, California, and they're still at it today, making dies and shell holders, presses, and all sorts of reloading supplies, trusted for decades. Get into reloading again with RCBS, rcbs.com. The ammo you choose for personal defense is just as important as the gun. Remington personal defense ammo is trusted by law enforcement and knowledgeable citizens. Try Golden Saber Bonded for tough performance, or Ultimate Defense Handgun in your concealed carry firearm. For compact handguns, Golden Saber Defense Compact is specially designed to perform. Go to Remington.com to see all the personal defense ammo options. So Mike, of course, you were a police officer when this shooting happened, your shooting happened. So those costs, those were, I guess, covered by like Fraternal Order of Police, right? They handle that?
Yeah.
Because you did go to trial over that shooting.
Yeah, I was sued about 2 years right before the statute of limitation ran out. Of course, they come and file a suit. And so it went to summary judgment, and it got kicked out at summary judgment. So I won the case. But it took about 1.5 years to get there. And, at that time, it probably would have been, I would guesstimate that probably would have been about $200,000, $250,000, and on a cop salary to have to do that, it would have been devastating. Luckily, I was a FOP member. They paid for everything, and that's where a lot of the lessons came out of when we created CCW Safe. Years later, when I left law enforcement in 2011 for good. I called my stepbrother, Kyle Sweet, who is a trial attorney. He was a police officer. And I said, hey, man, I need something that is going to cover me. I don't have an FOP anymore. And he's like, yeah, I need something too. And he looked around and just said, man, there's really nothing out there that's going to give us the comfort level and do what we need it to do that we had as police officers.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing, the biggest difference between what we do and everybody else, I fully believe that, everybody in the space is going to do what they say they're going to do.
Yeah, they have good intentions.
Yeah, they're going to do for their members what they say they're going to do. I fully believe that. We just do things a lot different. It all kind of goes back to that shooting. Gary Eastridge, who was our critical response team leader for years, he was the homicide detective who actually interviewed me on my shooting.
Wow.
And understanding what comes next, understanding the legal process from the law enforcement side, I think is huge. And being able to manage, that first, the response, the time from when the incident happens to the time when you're charged is, it's like the 48 hours. It's like the most important time. And to be able to have a critical response team on the ground next to you, people who understand, attorneys, people like Don West.
I want you to talk about this, because the critical response team, and you guys really explained it to me, and I went, this seems different than what some other folks are doing. You're talking about people that are on your team who have experience legal or in the justice system or investigators or whatever, and they actually show up like wherever this person is in the country? Is that how it works?
Yeah, wherever they are, like, within 12 to 24 hours, we have somebody on the ground. I know we had a case in Las Vegas on Thanksgiving Day, and the next morning we had somebody on the ground. We had an investigator, and we had Don West on the ground in Vegas. They were able to secure an attorney, and it just so happened that the attorney that we had already had a good professional relationship with the homicide detective who drew that case.
Yeah. So
we were able to, work for our member, and, nothing ever was done. They saw that it was in self-defense, and, we got that done. And actually what's kind of funny is in that case, so that member had 3 different memberships. He had us, and he had 2 others.
Oh,
so
wow.
he was paying for 3 memberships.
He was triply covered in some way, I guess.
We were the second call. He called one of the others first, and then he called us, and then he called the other one. And we were on the ground Friday, because it was on Thanksgiving Day that it happened. We were on the ground Friday, and I don't think he got even a return call from the others until Monday.
Oh, wow.
And one told him to just claim it on his homeowner's insurance, and he was like, it didn't even happen in my house. It happened in my daughter's house. And the other one, was like, hey, we'll get you an attorney, but by that time it had already been done. So that first 48 hours is just crucial in getting, you hear the term, let's get the right people on the bus. Mm-hmm. Getting the right people on the bus and getting them there to do their job, it's critical in the charging stage.
Yeah. I'm not a guy who I don't have a full understanding of the legal system, but I guess there is that possible opportunity that you could, if you do the right things in that first window of time, that you don't even get charged with a crime, right? Right. If it's handled the right way.
Yeah, it's handled the right way.
That's
why I'm saying
you're not going to trial over it, because never was a trial, because the proper evidence is there, and you have proper legal representation, and the DA or whoever says, this is a completely good self-defense shooting.
Yeah, they have to be led, down the path of showing what happened, and you have to have the right people there to do that.
Yeah, they need help.
Yeah.
I remember I had some friends who've worked in as assistant DAs or prosecutors or defenders or whatever, and a lot of those folks, they're not used to dealing with innocent people.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of a bias there. Like, I deal with criminals all day long, and it's maybe a little mental adjustment for them to go, no, you don't understand. This is a good guy who defended himself in the right way.
Well, that's a great point. And Chris Cunningham, who's one of our newer, she's a homicide detective. She's been in law enforcement for over 30 years. She was a homicide detective for most of that time. She's amazing. She made a point to me when she came on, and she was saying that, you know, all her years in law enforcement and working homicides as a homicide detective, she has a lane she has to stay in, and she stays in that lane professionally. That's her job, and that's the lane that she stays in. And she said when she first got hired, she went to a call, and she said, I knew immediately, like, I'm gonna do this, because she realized, wow, now I don't have to stay in this lane. I can actually help this person, you know, because they're about to get steamrolled with our justice system, which is just, it is what it is.
You don't know what you're getting into.
No, and all the jurisdictions are different, and, you know, you have different key people in different roles all over, and, you know, she made that comment of being able to, like, come out of that lane. I mean, and it was real. And when you have, you know, a homicide detective or investigator investigating that case, he's got to stay within his lane, and he's there for one thing. He's there to investigate that, see if there's a crime, and they need, you know, help with that through, you know, your attorney and so forth, to be able to work with them, to show them, an investigator if need, to show them, you know, what happened during that time. Because a lot of times they don't. I mean, we had one case where in one case there was some incidents that happened, and they didn't believe that there were 3 incidents that happened. They didn't believe that the second one happened, because the video that they had 2 locations, and the guy, you know, we had a member attacked, he retreated, went to another location, attacked again, went to another location with a second attack. The video system from that place, it didn't show anything happening. Well, there's
no proof.
It took our investigator that we hired to show that the timestamps were off. And then when they lined up the timestamps, there it was.
Yes, this could have happened because of the time.
Yeah, and then they were like, oh, okay, it did happen. It was just the timestamp was off. We were looking at the wrong time.
Wow.
You know, and so just little things like that. I mean, they need to, you know, you want the best version. That's why we say don't talk to the police, you know, when you're directly after, you know, be polite. Hey, I want to help you best I can, but I'm not in a frame of mind to do that, because they need the best information. And we want to help our members give the best information.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, I like kind of educating people more about this, because I think that people will have this, like, gunfight in their head of, like, I'm going to do this, and then the cops are going to show up, and they're going to give me a high five, and, you know, thanks for taking this scumbag off the streets. And, man, it's not that way most of the time.
It's not as easy as that. I mean, it may happen like that sometimes, but it's not that easy.
Yeah.
And it's never that cut and dry. You know, there's always going to be, you get 10 different people looking at one scenario, you're going to get 6 different things that happen.
Yeah. So. Well, I mean, I'm glad that you guys are offering this service. It's something that people, I mean, let's be honest, if you carry a gun, I guess at all, you need to have some type of coverage, so you got to look into it. Seems like you guys are doing it in a little bit different. You have your own way of doing it, which is kind of cool. Yeah. And good to educate people on it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike.
All right. Thank you.
To see all of Gun Talk's content, go to guntalk.com, guntalktv.com, or sign up for the Gun Talk newsletter.